Hi folks, with Tacitus Today back channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the leftist or more to the point, pro-globalist news anchors, talk show hosts, and so on that dominate the pretty much the entire media landscape, and just have a look at their wealth and where they live, and the moral lecturing. Now, these are people that are giving moral lectures to the rest of us on steroids. If there's a talk show and somebody gets up and says that they think mass migration should focus on skills, then this talk show host, moderator, supposed moderator, will jump in and say, well, that's just the sort of thing that Hitler would say. How many swastikas have you got? And then thunderous applause from the audience when this person is morally lectured and finger wagged back into silence, as invariably is the case in these things. So, or if they're not silenced immediately, then they're cast as a bad, evil, wicked person, a Hitler, and they get endless moral lectures, and the talk show host will single them out for constant finger wagging and moral lecturing. Now, some of I've looked at some of these talk shows, and the people are making, I think, as rare as it is, given how hand-picked the audience is, are making observations and comments saying, look, I grew up in a town that was 100% white, and within 20 years, it's down to 10% white. Oh, you Nazi fascist! How many swastikas have you got, you evil Hitler motherfucker? Yet that's an observation. I mean, what if it went into the reverse? If there was white people taking over a hitherto brown or black township, then it would be considered as evil and racist and colonial. And why does it only ever go one way? The wickedness can only be the behaviour, thoughts, and actions of white people that may disagree with mass migration. Or even just say, well, can't we just have skilled migration? Isn't that's enough to be called a Nazi? So very much these anchors, the memorandum's gone out. The globalist position is mass migration of illiterate third world peasants into white countries. That is the memorandum. You will support in any way. You will embarrass, humiliate, and morally lecture any who disagree with that. So it's not as if these people are in favour of it, as in personally in favour. It's their job to uphold this propaganda narrative and to take the role of moral lecturers of, oh, you Hitler Nazi. Now, but let's have a look at these people. These people who give the moral lectures that denounce and deride anyone that even questions mass peasant, illiterate, low IQ, third world migration into the West. Now, there's one prominent one in England I'm thinking of now, and she gets the job of, and it doesn't hesitate to morally lecture people and pull horrified faces if she hears that the camera picks up straight away. Now, she was born into a wealthy family. She's born into a wealthy family. She went to a series of private schools, expensive private schools, and then, which was a bit of a waste of time, I think, because she went to university to study, languages and sociology, and this is a course that no one seems to fail in. She was a blue-haired feminist and embraced radical feminisms there. Why would somebody from such a privileged background do that? That just seems odd. Again, wealthy private schools. And they must be girls' schools, so perhaps that had something to do with it. But she then has changes job every 5 minutes. So we've got someone that clearly has trouble fitting into the workplace, even as a uni student, or someone who's just left uni with a useless sociology degree. She goes to some advertising agency where she, she's like 22 or 23 at this point, and there's it's owned by a family company, and one of the directors of the company a family member who's a man about 10 years or so older than her, and they start getting sweet, and she marries this guy, and then is given a senior role within the company as now his wife. So she bypasses all the usual trials, tribulations, and baptisms of fire that it takes to build a career or in any area, and jump straight into senior management. His family is quite well connected, and so she then finds herself on the receiving end of other cozy, well-paid, prestigious jobs, and then is given a major job in a news media organisation. Now she's paid big bucks. The husband has, again, well-connected guy who walks from one big buck job to another. They live in one of the whitest neighbourhoods of London, with a house that's, depending on who you want to look at, worth between $5 and $6 million, and they've got a country house which is worth between $3 and $4 million. So these are people. I mean, rich is probably a bit of a stretch, but they're doing okay. The children go to some of the most, one of the most expensive private schools in the world, and so this is the sort of lifestyle these people live. Now, if you look at a video from the main street of where they live in London, you're lucky to see any black or brown person. If you do see any, they're the flunkies cleaning the toilets in the supermarket, or the security guards at the local stores. And, those are the sort of people. Other than that, it's wall-to-wall white people. Now it's I think it's 94.5% white, which, okay, well, they've only got 5 every 100, brown black peasants defecating in the main street. No, that's the sort of people that are living there have problems. Non-white people are Saudi princes, Chinese elite Communist Party generals, Indian super rich Brahmins, and so on. They're the non-white people who are living in those areas, not the peasants. The peasants, the few that come there, only come to work at the shit jobs, the toilet cleaners. Then they go back to their 22 a room bullshit holes somewhere in the cheapest part of London. Now, this is just one example, but if you go through the list of people that extol the alleged virtues of mass migration, they and I couldn't find an exception, actually, certainly only the key ones, they all live in all white neighbourhoods. Why do these people that extol the virtues of mass migration not live in and amongst the mass migration? Where they're hearing the West Indian music being blasted out till 3 or 4 in the morning, where they're having to walk over people defecating in the street, where they walk down the whole street and the whole shopping district and don't hear English spoken at all, where there's nothing but kebab shops and curry shops. Well, they don't. There's none of that stuff down the main streets where they live. It's about as English as you can get. And from that position of wealth and privilege and so on, they morally lecture the rest of us for not wanting it. Now, I'm just in Australia, at least, or Sydney and Melbourne, when the mass migrants began to arrive, they went overwhelmingly into the poorest neighbourhoods of Sydney, and there were some minor exceptions here where there's 20 of them to a one-bedroom apartment being packed in, but by and large they went into the poorest areas, or they lived, or the local government, so that there's no, you're not supposed to have more than 4 people in a dwelling. Say a one-bedroom apartment, you can't have more than 3 people, I think, in it is the bylaw. But when they, these mass migrants pack them in at 20 to a one-bedroom apartment, then the government just looks the other way. They used to be quite rigorous on policing this. but now they just look the other way. So you get that over representation in areas that have a lot of apartments and so on. And those apartments are overwhelmingly offshore, owned by wealthy moneyed interests from India or China or wherever. So BlackRock even. So the poorer areas of the city in Sydney, or even the middle distance burbs and so on, become completely taken over by these mass migrant, illiterate, third world brown black peasants. It's not the wealthy areas that get affected. Now, there are people that I know that are in a similar sort of wealthy position that extol the virtues, alleged virtues, they can't name them, but extol the virtues of mass migration. And when I say mass migration, I mean mass migration of rocket scientists, because there are not that many in the whole world anyway. So you couldn't have mass migration of high quality people because they don't exist anywhere in mass. So I'm talking about illiterate IQ 70 peasants from places like fucking Bangladesh and Africa and so on. Where this is supposed to be a wonderful, good thing, so the rich people in their rich areas are saying. When I say rich, if someone's worth $10 million in Sydney, that's not really rich anymore. So, well-to-do or well enough not to have to bother about it. Now they talk, and I've sat in the $200,000 motor vehicle as I'm driving along with these people, and they'll just casually mention that it's all this mass migration is a wonderful thing because we need the people, we need the labour. There's no one to do the work, which is an absolutely asinine assertion. But anyway, but then they'll add, "Oh, I don't want those people anywhere near me. It's okay if they're over there, but I don't want them near me. I don't want those peasant men harassing my daughter as she goes out to the shop or my wife goes jogging. I don't want them harassing no, I don't want that. But they can come here and clean my pool or clean mop my floor or something, but that's it. I don't want them otherwise. So they give away there straight away that they're not really in favour of mass migration. They're in favour of cheap, coolie, flunky labour to mow their lawn. That's all. And that rather sums it up. Just in one instance, some rich Chinese people have been buying up property in the street that they live in, and these are between $5 and $10 million properties, water views and the whole thing. And these rich Chinese people have been putting house minders, or if you're going to call it, people in there, and they're employees that their real job is to stay in the house, and so there's somebody there type thing, but their real job is just to sweep the floor and clean the toilets down the road and work in the Chinese restaurant or wherever. They're just cool. And you see the minibus, the limo, the 20-seater limo turn up, and then they all find. Now I speak sort of passable Mandarin, so I can tell the peasant accents and the rural accents and so on. So these are just the rich Chinese people who've got a lot of money to launder. They make their money corruptly. It's not like they're working 9 to 5 or something, and they make their money corruptly, and they need to launder the money. And Western and Australian real estate is a perfect way to launder the money. So they buy all these houses in Sydney and so on, and then they put these house minder rural peasants in there to look after the place. And these peasants, of course, they're very much people who do urinate and defecate in the street, and they've got they're certainly not refined and cultured in any known sense of the word. So these people start to appear in the street, and then suddenly the rich white folks, they don't like it anymore. Oh no, I don't want those people in the street. I don't want people behaving like that. The way they look at my dog, it's like they want to eat my dog. Well, they probably do. And then suddenly they don't like it anymore. I don't want that. I don't have anything in common with those people. Well, yeah, you don't. But nor do the white people who've been packed tight with low IQ, black and brown folks. They don't have anything in common with them. As soon as you get even a slight taste of this, and bear in mind, they're not living in an apartment. They're living in a large block of land where these folks aren't right, aren't sharing the adjacent wall in the apartment block, and they're outraged by it and they don't like it, and already these people say, oh well, I'm thinking of moving, says the woman. I don't like this here. I don't like the way they look at my dog. I don't like the way they look at my daughter, and so on and so forth. So it's a very selective view on this, and the idea that these people actually believe in mass migration or understand its implications, and we could put both into the same thing there, is that they don't really support it. They're not really in favour of it. They're in favour of the ideological perception of it, but not the reality of it. When the reality comes close to them, even in a small way, they react very negatively to it. I don't want those people anywhere near me, but it's okay. They're quite well. The lower class white people are animals and feral filth anyway. So why should I care what happens to them? If they have to live amongst the IQ 70 brown peasants, well, they're all peasants anyway, including the white bear. So, but this idea of wealth separating. So I went through in England. I took the Britain. I took the sort of what I would determine to be the top 10 pro mass immigration talking heads, and one of them is like a permanent guest, a serial guest, to finger wag everybody and tell them how evil they are if they don't like mass migration. I don't agree with it. Now they're all Nazis and far right and swastika and so on and so forth. And all of them, I mean, without exception, they all come from wealth. And if they haven't come from wealth, they've become wealthy since they became a talking head in favour of mass migration, and they all live in all white areas. And this includes, by the way, if we talk about the government people who say, oh, you're a Nazi if you don't like mass migration, and they all live in all white areas. Why is it that no one who extols the supposed alleged indescribable virtues of mass migration, why do all of them live in all white areas? Why do all of them have all white country houses and all white areas? Why is that? And that needs to be, I think, examined far more closely. And when someone like, say, Fiona Bruce or whatever, in one of those, I think she's from the BBC, whenever she plays this thing, so, well, hold on a minute, you live in Belsize Park. That's one of the most white areas of London. I mean, what about your country property in all white area? What is this you're talking about, you fucking hypocrite? And really shovel it back to her. You've got no moral superiority here. You're just nothing but a shill for the globalist, you pathetic fuck. You're just racist against white people. You're a disgusting, vile, anti-white racist. And really, that's the dialogue I think we need to be putting out there. You've been a TASSOS today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.